Sometime in the next 90 days, your CFO is going to lean across the table and ask you one question. Can you prove AI is working? Not are we using it, not how many pilots are running, proof. And in that silence, before you answer, that's where most AI strategies are quietly falling apart. 88% of the companies are using AI today. 6% can actually put a number that the CFO is happy with. The gap between those two percentages isn't a technology gap. It isn't a budget gap. It is a frame gap. And that's what we will unpack in the next 30 minutes. Today, I want to challenge the most common assumption in banking AI today, that ROI means productivity. Now, that framing isn't wrong, it just is incomplete. And the banks that can't see past that are losing ground to those that can. So we will look at the numbers, understand why the frame is breaking down, and I will describe a 6-lever framework and that the top performing banks are already using. And at the end, I will leave you with 3 Monday morning actions and a way to talk to your CFO, and that doesn't depend on counting hours saved. Let's get on to it. Welcome, everyone. I am Sabarish Muthumperumal, and I head Sutherland's BFS Digital Engineering practice. And I've been in the industry for well over 20 years, spent a decade and a half consulting with some of the biggest Wall Street names, helping them build and launch enterprise-level products and platforms. So you could say that I have some opinions. Now let's start with the question. Can you prove AI is working? Every CFO is about to ask it, if they haven't already. Can you prove AI is working? Not are we using it? Proof. The pilots, the co-pilot license, the agent assist. What is it actually returning? And underneath that question is a hidden assumption that is killing most of the answers. And we'll come back to it. But for now, sit with the question. If the board asked you tomorrow, what would you say? Gartner is forecasting $2.5 trillion in global AI spending in 26 alone. And that's over 44% from last year. And yet 95% of GenAI pilots are failing to produce any measurable results in 6 months. And according to MIT Nanda's study, and that report is from 2025 across 150 interviews and 300 deployments. 88% of companies use AI, but only 6% actually see clear financial returns. And in the PwC's most recent global CEO survey, covering about 4,500 CEOs across 95 countries, 56% report neither revenue nor cost gains from AI. Think about that. More than half of the companies that are actually investing in AI don't see returns. And investors are actually watching. And half of them are expecting returns within 6 months itself. And the patience window is not infinite. What's actually causing this then? There are 4 failure modes that I see consistently across banking AI programs. The first one, framed as the activity trap, that's the most common one. Banks count the motions and not the outcomes. The productivity mirage is similar, but it is almost as common. We saved X hours. Yes, but where did those hours go? Richard Colbridge from Sergo, he names this precisely. And the two-speed collision is banking specific. If you're trying to show AI returns in 6 months, but your regulatory change cycle takes 3 years, and the single lever trap is the root cause of everything else. We force every AI use case into an FTE savings frame. even when the real value is probably from loss avoidance. It could be about regulatory compliance or regulatory resilience or even customer trust. So what is this hidden frame problem, right? Now, so the mirage isn't that the banks can't measure AI value. They can. The problem is that the frame that they are using is singular. Most banking platforms are using productivity and FTE saves or efficiency ratios or headcount reduction as the only frame. Now, that frame is legitimate, but it only fits 1 in 5 banking AI use cases. The other 4 out of the 5 need a completely different frame altogether. And when you force fit them into the productivity mold, the business case collapses and the pilot dies. Now, one frame, 4 use cases, and where does it actually fit? Look at the contrast. The left side is what most banking AI board decks say. We saved X hours, deployed Y licenses. And the right side is what most banking AI use cases actually deliver. Fraud that was caught even before it hits the P&L. Regulatory examinations that passed without findings. Customer trust sustained through difficult moments. Data infrastructure that becomes a competitive moat. None of these actually fit the productivity frame. And when you try to force fit in, that is when you express fraud prevention as an FTE save, the business case falls apart. The CFO doesn't believe it, and the pilot dies. And that's the frame mismatch. How do we fix that? There is a report from IDC that captures this shift exactly. The boards are starting to accept non-financial KPIs. So, have you improved employee engagement? Have you improved the decision quality? Have you improved the customer experience in their AI narratives? Now, that's the major shift from 2 years ago. And this is really your permission structure to tell a more honest story about what your AI programs are actually delivering. You don't need to pretend that everything is an FTE save anymore. You need the right framework then to name the value that you're actually creating. So here's the framework. 6 value levers. The discipline that separates the 6% club. JP Morgan, Capital One, RBC, BBVA, and DBS from everyone else is not superior technology, it's the value frame plurality. They match the right lever to the right use case, measure each one on its own terms, and tell the board a multi-lever portfolio story instead of forcing every initiative into the productivity frame. Let me walk you through each lever. The first is not surprising, it's the run. That's the lever everyone starts with, and it's legitimate. It's high volume, it's repeatable, and it is low judgment work. Think of your document processing, your KYC processes, contact center routing. This is where AI delivers its clearest hard dollar returns. The KPIs are verifiable, the cost to serve comes down, the efficiency ratios are better, FTE per billion assets under management. Now, DBS Bank has been one of the leaders over here. But here is the cautionary note. Run is the only lever that maps cleanly to FTE saves. But if your entire AI portfolio is about run, then you're leaving 5 other levers and the most strategic value on the table. The next related one is grow. This is where your business CEOs become your biggest advocates. The claim is routinely capacity unlocked, right? The higher the wallet share, better conversion ratios, improved NINs, not hours saved. The critical measurement discipline, you need a control group or a holdout to prove incrementality. What that means is you have to have a control group to show that if you do not deploy this, here is how much of growth you would have left on the table. JP Morgan has been quietly building this story in AI-assisted RM tools. When the business line president says, hey, AI-assisted RMs generate measurably more revenue per client than unaided RMs. Now, that's a growth lever the CFO will believe in. Now, those two are explainable. Those have real numbers behind them. Let us move beyond the productivity conversation entirely. The next three levers that I'm going to talk about, protect, comply, and experience, are where the regulators, the risk officers, and the customers believe in. These are the levers that keep your CRO in the room and your board's audit committee from pushing back. And the criticality, they require different measurement methodology than run and grow. You don't measure fraud prevention in FTE saves. You measure it in basis points of loss rate reduction. Okay. Protect is a hard dollar lever, but it is measured on basis points of loss rate, not hours saved. Every BPS of fraud loss rate reduction translates directly to dollars on the income statement. Capital One has built one of the most sophisticated fraud AI capabilities in the industry. The measurement, the discipline, you need a clean counterfactual. What would be the loss rate if you do not deploy the AI system? And that's your baseline. Your catch rate improvement over that baseline is the claim. When you talk about compliance, this is extremely banking specific and it's extremely undervalued. One avoided MRA from the OCC is worth a lot more than an entire year of FTE saves. And that is just the compliance function. And it almost never gets counted as an AI ROI. The key regulators watching the banking AI industry right now, SR 11.7, now that's been superseded, SR 26, on the model risk management, the fair lending under the CFPB, the OCC examinations of AI governance, the BSA, AML compliance, banks that actually use AI to compress the CCAR cycle time, automate fair lending monitoring, maintaining always-on compliant analytics are building a regulatory resilience mode. Measure it in exam findings prevented and not hours saved. Experience is where the human judgment and AI augmentation intersect. The key insight, right? Trust and judgment and not speed drive the outcome in banking. Customers don't want faster, bad advice. They just want better advice. Employees don't want faster, low quality work. They want more meaningful work. BBVA has been building the story with their advisor AI tools, measured in customer satisfaction scores, not headcount reduction. The boards are increasingly accepting non-financial KPIs. I repeat, they are accepting non-financial KPIs. The discipline is separate the experience improvement from speed improvement in your measurement. The 6% club. 88% of organizations use AI in some form or the other, but only 6% of them are actually seeing financial returns. This is from a Boston University research. Now, this is the minority of the banking institutions. We've seen the JP Morgan, Capital One, RBC, BBVA, and DBS. They do something differently. They have moved beyond a single frame productivity ROI into a portfolio of value levers. That's the gap. That's the gap between them and everyone else, and it is widening every quarter. It's reflected in market multiples, talent pipelines, and customer perception. And the discipline that separates them isn't superior technology. It's this value frame plurality. Let me show you the sixth lever and then the full blueprint. Most important, not to neglect. Capital One's data infrastructure advantage didn't happen because of a GenAI pilot. It happened because they invested in data foundations almost a decade ago. That investment is now their moat. The discipline is separate the future lever investments explicitly in your board narrative. Don't make those investments compete with a run, probably a run lever quick wins on the same yardstick. Score them on data asset maturity, MLOps pipeline velocity, talent retention, and the AI brand ranking. So how do you move from a single lever and express your returns in terms of a portfolio? I'll go back to just the 6% club again. They just don't know the levers. They actually operate a 4-step discipline. Diagnose, score your bank's readiness over all the 6 levers, not just the technology readiness. Look at the data, look at the talent, look at the regulatory posture, look at the overall organizational readiness. Then selections. Pick 2 or 3 levers most viable in the next 12 months. Don't do all the 6 at once. That is how you scatter. Sequence it. Quick wins on run or grow for a 6-month board visibility. Reinvention bets on protect or comply for, say, 18 to 36 month story. And then finally, the narration. Build the board cadence with a portfolio view. Don't just show a single lever defense. RE, our BFS purpose-built diagnostic, runs steps 1 and 2 systematically. Richard Colbridge on CIO.com put the discipline in one nice phrase. He said, focus on proof of value and not proof of concept. What does that mean? It means that there are 4 different gates that every pilot must pass before it actually starts. 1, the lever assignment. Which of the 6 levers is this initiative based on? Second, the baseline. What is the current state that we are actually measuring ourselves against? And third, this to me is very important. Who is that named owner? Who is actually accountable for the outcome? By name, not a committee, but a person. And then finally, the kill criterion. At what point do we say that this project is done and you can move the resources elsewhere? If your pilots don't have all these 4, you're just running a science project, not a disciplined AI program. And science projects don't survive CFO scrutiny, not for too long. So here is what actually changes when you move from a single lever to a portfolio. A POC to production conversion lifts from roughly 10% to 50%, and that's the IDC trajectory. And it is achievable in 12 months. Zombie pilot drag drops from 25% to 40% because kill criteria activate early and resources flow into the winning initiatives. The stakeholder assignment or alignment rises dramatically. Risk gets a protect comply story and they can defend on. Business gets a growth experience story tied to their P&L. Tech gets a future story tied to capability, and the board narrative becomes durable because a slow payback initiative isn't forced to compete with a productivity quick win on the same yardstick. And as promised, here are the 3 things that you can do on a Monday morning. Go grab a coffee and then go over your AI programs one by one. 1. Map your top 5 active AI initiatives to one of the 6 levers. Every one of the banks that I have spoken to find that at least 4 of the top 5 are misframed or misaligned. Next, pick your most troubled pilot, the one that keeps dying in the CFO reviews. Identify its true lever and rewrite its business case using that lever's KPI and measurement methodology. Say a compliance project in an FTE savings frame, go ahead and rewrite it as an MRA avoidance lever. And finally, number 3, and in your next board AI update, name that lever explicitly. This is a protect lever. We measure it on basis points of loss rate. And sit back and watch what happens to that conversation. It completely changes the nature of the questions that you will get, and maybe even an added budget. And that's my 30 minutes. Now, here are a few things that I would love to hear from you. what is your organization? Where is your organization on that lever map right now? Are there specific levers that you're struggling to defend in your board narrative? And if you want to continue this conversation one-on-one about your specific bank situation, I'd love to chat. We could even do a 30-minute RE discovery session. Just scan the QR code or write to me at that email on your screen. Have fun.